The following video contains content that some viewers might find disturbing. If you'd like a full understanding of what sort of topics are discussed in this video, please check the description. Have a great day.
Hi everybody. Obviously there's something that we need to address up front before starting anything. This. I don't know why I look like this. There was like a funny bit that me and my wife started with and it somehow just kept escalating and now I look like this. Dude, you have any input on this?
Just like go into a high energy.
This sucks. This entire intro. I'm leaving me saying this. This intro sucks. So with that out of the way, it's difficult for me. I can't do this. Why do I look like this? I don't have an explanation. I don't. Let's get into the intro of the video. It's difficult for me to truly get into live plays these days. With all the different campaigns I watch for fun, as well as the ones that I watch for the channel, finding one that truly catches my interest can be difficult. But let me tell you, Candela Obscura did it for me. And if I'm being honest, I really didn't expect for it to. Now, if we wanted to actually get into why that is, actually, no, I can't do it. I can't do it like this. We need a different vibe. Give me a second.
And so, while Jay slipped into something a little more comfortable, we decided to do what we knew needed to be done. Welcome to the Candela Obscura Vassal and Veil review. I'll let the spoiler warning speak for itself.
In the intricate dance of storytelling, spoilers lurk like phantoms in the mist, both a bane and a paradox. They are a forbidden fruit to our narrative of Eden, tempting with the allure of forbidden knowledge, yet potentially robbing us of the joy of discovery. Consider a YouTuber's journey into Candela Obscura, a quest rife with unknowns and fraught with danger. To know too much ahead of time is to diminish the thrill of the chase, the shock of the unseen. Yet, in our insatiable curiosity, we find ourselves drawn to these spoilers, as if by some primordial force. Spoilers are a conundrum, a paradox wrapped in an enigma. They promise power, the power of knowledge and foresight, but at what cost? The cost of wonder, of surprise, of the visceral emotional journey that comes with experiencing a story unfold in its intended rhythm. As we contemplate spoilers, we must ask ourselves, what do we truly seek in our quest for the stories? Is it merely the end, the resolution, or is it the journey itself? The twists and turns, the revelations that come at the perfect moment, the crescendo of a well-timed climax. Let us tread carefully, honoring the sanctity of the story and the right of each traveler to journey through at their own pace. Be warned. There is no doubt of the nature of spoilers ahead. You can only ask yourself, are you prepared to receive them?
That's better. For those of you who are wondering why I have makeup on, it really just started as me asking my wife to put on some general eyeshadow just to kind of get like that sort of gothic look. And then it kept escalating and then we had to stop recording, so we redid the makeup. And I figured to all those people who keep commenting on my videos telling me that I'm not masculine enough and I should be more masculine because I cry on camera, get bent. Anyways, with that being said, let's go ahead and start the video. Now, let's talk about Candela Obscura specifically, because the truth is, it's difficult for me to truly get into a different campaign these days. With all the different campaigns that I watch for fun, as well as the ones that I watch for the channel, finding one that truly catches my interest is difficult. So, let's get into Candela Obscura, starting with part 1, A Cold Embrace. How do you drink with lipstick on? Like, I know we did this with like the straw, but bottles?
It's how I drink, but like, you can drink however you want. Jay, you're not putting this on the internet.
Who am I to deny those who desire to thirst?
It doesn't have to be you denying them. It's me denying them. I've met some of your fans IRL. I don't need any more of them to thirst over you.
I don't know how I'm gonna edit this into the video. Now, for the sake of this story, we will need to have a deeper understanding of Candela Obscura's rules as a whole. Because see, Candela Obscura is a new system that CriticalRole has created through their printing press, or through their printing company, publishing company, Darrington Press. Darrington Press hasn't released a lot of stuff yet, though it is slowly churning out things, and so far, all of them have been real high quality, and I don't think Candela Obscura is any different. It's a pretty simple TTRPG system that runs off of a specific thing that they've created, known as the, hold on, I have it written in my notes. I just gotta find it real quick. Illuminated Worlds, based off the Illuminated Worlds system, which is a new system they created very similar to the D20 system, which D&D 5e is so well known for. Now, with that being said, it has a main focus on mystery progression. The point of the game is for the characters to come together with their different skills, roles, and motivations in order to solve a mystery. Almost always having something to do with the supernatural, because that's what this entire game is about. Typically, their class is going to be something that they choose which fills the roles of a typical mystery-solving conundrum. Say you're the brains of the operation, or you're the muscle, or you might be the one who has a strange connection to the monsters around you. Alongside this, you roll d6s for basically every skill check that you make. Any of the numbers that roll on the dice, basically you choose the highest one. Depending on the roll, you can have more d6s or less, but you always choose the highest one unless rolling with disadvantage for the sake of trying to solve everything. A 6 is a perfect critical success, a 5 and a 4 is a mixed success, and anything below that is a failure. So with that being said, let's jump into the actual story, because I know that's what most of you have actually come for, but I promise that the mechanics are going to be important, so I will continue to mention them as the story progresses when they are important. So let's dive into it.
Welcome to New Fair, a vibrant, expanding metropolis of industry and culture, nestled along the west coast of the verdant, fertile Fairlands Valley, within the northern country of Hale. The year is 1907 here in this world, not too unlike our own in a similar time. However, a decade-long cold snap known as the Shiver left many outsiders envious of the region's resources, leading to the last great war, with the foreign invading forces Halens refer to as Otherwhere.
Now, for episode 1, the primary goal is to get to know all the main characters. And yes, I understand that seems obvious, but that really is the core heart of the story as a whole. Getting to know the characters, understanding their motivations, and understanding how they change because of the strange supernatural entities that they end up interacting with. So, let's meet them. The entire story takes place in the town of New Fair, a very interesting city that has kind of turn-of-the-century technology, but also seems to be stuck in the past. Recently, a large war brewed in which they finally managed to come out of, but the world is now inflicted with a lot of supernatural things from the old times, which a lot of people like to pretend doesn't exist. And that's where our group comes in. The first person that we meet is Augie James, played by Ashley Johnson, and without a doubt, it is one of my favorite characters, not to play favorites. Augie is a 19-year-old boy who has a plucky attitude and a lot of desire to learn about the world around him, even when he shouldn't.
Augie James, would you like to describe yourself?
Hey, that's me. My name is August James, but you call me Augie for short. I'm 19 years old. I was an orphan, dropped off at McManigan's, Saint Manigan's lodging house for children, and been there my whole life, working the streets. Yeah, you need something? You call me.
Honestly, I don't get to see Ashley play a main character a lot because most of the time that I've seen her is from campaigns 1 and 2, where she constantly had to leave. I haven't watched a lot of campaign 3, which means I haven't gotten to see Ashley really just be Ashley. And this felt like one of the few times I genuinely got to see that, and I genuinely enjoyed it. It is such a blast, and I'll point out many times why I find Augie such an incredible character. But for now, just know he's your typical street rat just trying to get by and wants to know more about a world that is infinitely larger than him.
Wait, do you guys want to see somebody who's really on the rat scale?
What does that mean, really on the rat scale?
Hold on. It'll take me just a second to find the rat.
Okay.
I'll show them to you too.
Mm-hmm.
I sent recently.
Yep.
Oh yeah, here he is. Hold on, this guy, rat scale, on the rat scale is a 10 on the rat scale, right?
Is that my sister's dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a rat. It's a rat for sure. 10 out of 10
Love
rat.
him.
Rattiest dog. Anyways, anything else to show the audience before I introduce them to the next character?
There's another dog that looks like a bat most times, like a fruit bat.
Yes, that's Nox. This is Nox. Why are we introducing my sister's dogs?
This is Potato.
Potato is my least favorite. I'm on record of saying this.
I love Potato, but he's so annoying.
He's a gremlin, a genuine gremlin. So moving forward, there are 3 other characters, and I'll assign them one of those dogs. I will send the dog that seems closest to them.
Oh, God.
So, next we meet Dr. Howard Margrove, played by Robbie Daymond. And this is, without a doubt, my actual genuine favorite character. I don't mean to play favorites. I know I said Augie was one of my favorites, but Howard honestly is one of my favorites. Robbie does such a great job of playing him. He's a professor at Briarbank College, and he is condescending. He has a high amount of intelligence and values it quite a bit, but but his intelligence gets him into trouble, and he desires to know more about things which simply can't be explained, the supernatural beyond.
As per usual, Howard is buried in books and papers. He has a grim look on his face. Consternation, working through whatever puzzles in front of him. And even though it's late in the evening, he's dressed as if it's the first thing in the morning. Astutely appointed, tall hat. And he's leafing through papers, just sort of really trying to work out what's in front of him. Yeah, he's an older gentleman. He's 52 years old. He wears spectacles, but it's hard to tell whether or not they're for reading or far away. And he is a professor at this college, and this is his office. That's not only filled with books, but some oddities, and it's very pristine inside. Yeah.
For the case of this, I'll be assigning him my least favorite dog, Potato. I don't know why, it just feels like it works. I will give no further explanation to this. Next up, we meet Arlo Black, played by Laura Bailey. She's a wealthy young woman who was contacted by Candela Obscura after a strange interaction with the supernatural that left her scarred and different from the world around her. Honestly, I love Arlo because she's a very underplayed character. Obviously, I've mentioned many times that I love Campaign 2 of Critical Role the most, so I've seen Laura play Jester more out of anything else. And so I've seen her play this big bombastic character, so to see her play somebody so low and close to the ground is honestly very impressive. And while she does give me slight Imogen vibes, I definitely feel like this is a very different character, and I absolutely love her and love the interactions that she has with a lot of the other characters, which we will dive into.
I'm sitting in my bedroom in front of the vanity. She's been dressed for the day and is staring into the mirror. Completely silent. Every once in a while her eyes will drift to the side and bring it back and stare at herself again. Not saying anything. Come in.
For the sake of this, I'll be assigning her Knox, which I guess leaves the rat dog. This was ill thought out. None of these dogs match these characters. This is a bad idea. Lastly, we meet Charlotte Eves, played by Anjali Bhimani. I am so sorry if I mispronounced that name. I tried many times to read it out to make sure that I did it properly, and somehow I kept messing it up. But if I've learned anything, if I mispronounce somebody's name, the comments will correct me. Sorry, Siobhan, if you have ever seen my videos. I didn't mean to one time pronounce your name with a B and never hear the end of it. Charlotte Eves is the owner of this Sight Unseen bar and club. She is somebody who's well connected in the red light district of the city and seems to have a lot of underground contacts. I honestly do love Charlotte, but I didn't notice her the first several times that I watched this series. And yes, I have watched this series multiple times at this point to make this video. Charlotte was somebody who kind of ran under the radar the first time I watched it, but the second and third really impressed me. It is an incredible display of silent anxiety by Anjali, and I truly do love this character, but it was interesting because she did not have nearly as many bombastic moments as the rest of them. And I find that very impressive because she still remained important while not having those big moments that a lot of people expect, and that is a crucial part to play.
I am standing in the doorway between my back office and the front of the bar. I'm watching my right-hand man, Stinson, watching him as he tends to the bar. And I'm surveying all manner of humanity in the room. Some who perhaps it's their first time in the Red Lamp, and some who are using this place as an alibi because they know that I have a particular reputation that somehow smooths over certain transgressions. Mm-hmm. I'm just watching carefully, making sure there isn't anyone that I have to deal with, and fondly looking back occasionally at a small cot with a rumpled blanket and a pillow. And that's about it.
So, with all the characters met together, let's get into the actual story, because see, it starts with Augie James, who in my eyes is one of the highlights of the entire series. Much of the story actually hinges off his relationships with the other characters, especially in this early episode, but we will get to that in just a moment. The primary focus is to introduce Augie to the world of Candela Obscura, as he is the only one who has not had interactions with it up until this point. And so we follow him as he runs through his paper route, which leads him to visiting his older friend, Donald.
Come in, come in. And in the far corner, you see the iron furnace, the kind of centered bit of warmth that he keeps and kind of sets himself around. He's kind of over there with a big shawl over his shoulders and a blanket kind of over that. He's in his mid-70s, spent most of his life working in these factories, and you can see it's taking a toll on his health as he kind of coughs a bit, looks over towards you. Hey, it's nice for you to come by, Augie.
Got a good thick one for you today.
Oh, thank you.
Lots of stories, lots of good shit.
Augie is kind to Donald, and this initial interaction very clearly shows what kind of person Augie is. He cares deeply for those around him, especially those who are down on their luck. Donald is an older individual who clearly at one point held some amount of respect, but is now just trying to get through in life. Augie finds him tossing pieces of coal into the fire just to keep warm, and they have a lovely conversation.
You got aspirations there, Augie? You gonna be running the paper the rest of your life?
Maybe running the paper, maybe be the mayor of the town.
See there? I like that ambition.
I think I'd be good at it.
I bet you would too. You got a clever mind. You got bright eyes. You speak from the heart. These are things that, well, things that we need in the political circles of this city.
It also shows that Augie has ambition, as Donald asks him a few different questions and shows that Augie believes the world is there so long as he tries to take it. His endless optimism is honestly infectious, and I love watching it. But the scene ends all too quickly. As Donald is tossing all of these pieces of coal, he grabs one in particular that was just the wrong one. As he tosses it in, an explosion occurs, rocketing out from the fireplace, causing not fire, but ice to explode out into the entire room. As this happens, both Donald and Augie are knocked backwards, and for a moment, Augie sees his own body flying through the air, having an out-of-body experience before succumbing to darkness. At this point, the camera pans out, and we meet the rest of the characters, and I do mean the camera pans out. One of the interesting things about Candela Obscura, and I have not read the actual rulebook because unlike a lot of other YouTubers, it didn't get sent to me, so not gonna hold that personally or anything. Either way, I haven't actually read the rulebook, but I do notice that anytime I've watched any of the people in Critical Role play it, they describe the scenes as if it's cinematic. They explain where the camera is, where it pans to, what sort of angle we're seeing. And I do love this, because it is something that we can easily connect to as players. A player will understand what we mean when we talk about different types of shots or the camera that's occurring, because it's something we've seen a lot of times in movies. And so I do honestly love that there seems to be some encouragement to do that, and even if it's not in the rulebook, I will certainly be employing similar things in my campaign. One of the things I won't be mentioning because it's not conducive to the format of this video is that at the beginning of every single episode, we actually have a scene like the beginning of one of Supernatural's episodes. A scene showing the threat that's going to happen, a sort of preview. While we know that none of the main characters get to see it, the players do, and this prepares them for the adventure ahead. And I do love that. So yes, the camera does pan to the rest of the characters who I've already introduced, so we'll skip over that part, but eventually that camera pans back to Augie, and we get to see more of what occurred after that explosion.
Holy shit!
You dart up out of consciousness, not knowing how much time has passed, and yell, "Holy shit," into the area. Your vision's blurred and kind of fuzzy, and you immediately watch as 6 people turn around and face you.
Eventually, Augie comes to in an incredibly groggy state, only to find himself surrounded by periphery officers, otherwise known as the police force of the city, and they're investigating the crime scene. Specifically, these police officers are from the OUP, a very specific section of the periphery that investigates odd, otherworldly entities and interactions. And as he questions them and tries to find out what happened to Donald, eventually the truth is revealed. Donald is no longer with them. And with this truth, Augie runs out, leaving the entire scene being told that he probably just hallucinated the whole thing and that Donald had just died of natural causes, and thus he's sent on his way. As he goes, however, he begins to feel like something is following him, like there is a shadow in the distance, and true enough, there is. Somebody has been following Augie through the streets, and as he begins to go forward, Suddenly, a scarred woman in her 50s steps out of an alley and asks him for a conversation.
Why? What? Who are you? 1,000 people are coming at me right now that I don't even know, and you're all telling me to. Who are you?
As she steps into the gaslight, you can see a woman in her mid-50s or so, brown skin, hair up in thick locks that are pulled to the top that kind of drift past the shoulders with gray streaks that run through. She looks intensely towards you. One of her eyes, her right eye, is clouded white. And what you can see is these heavy scars that streak down the face and through the eye that look almost like lightning bolts that just kind of carve through past the cheek.
She introduces herself as Alexandra and tells him not to trust the OUP, at which point he responds, honestly, very fairly.
I don't know who to trust right now. I don't even know who you are.
Good.
You're telling me not to trust them? How am I supposed to know I'm supposed to trust you?
But they do step into the shadows to talk, and since she thinks that what was happening was not normal, she offers him a choice. She invites him to meet her new friends, and if he likes them, he can help them investigate what happened to his friend Donald and get some sort of justice for it. If he doesn't like them, he can leave immediately. Augie agrees, and they head towards the Blue Derby Diner. There, they find a table with Charlotte, Arlo, and Howard already there, and they begin to make acquaintances. Now, something we learn here is that Charlotte actually already knows Augie, though she pretends that she does not. Augie works for her occasionally and does some favors for her whenever she needs it. He even sleeps on a cot in her office, so she has some amount of respect and care for this boy, but she doesn't want to let everybody else know that she knows him in case that's compromising. So she pretends she doesn't, but we learn pretty early on that this is the case. Augie is then introduced to the others, and this is where the story really begins to fold out. The story is mostly about them investigating the mysterious circumstances of Donald's death and finding the source of the depraved bleed, which is what they describe as supernatural damage. See, there's 3 different types of damage you could take in Candela Obscura: body, brain, and bleed. Body is, of course, whenever your body gets damaged. Brain is whenever your brain takes damage from either learning too much or having too much stress of a certain situation. And bleed is what happens when you are touched by that which is beyond the veil of the supernatural. Now, that being said, I do want to point out that the damage system in this game is incredible because damage happens when you act. And I will get into that in a later point, but I just need you to know that damage is very important because it only typically ever happens because of player actions. And if you take too much damage, you gain a scar, a permanent visible scar on your person that is then shown for the rest of the campaign. Meanwhile, your damage resets to 0, but if you take too many scars, your character is forced to either die or retire, never to be played again. So it is very important to manage how much damage you've taken. The purpose of me mentioning that there is so that you understand what I mean when I say that they are trying to search and discover and investigate the bleed that has occurred within Donald's apartment. From here on out, the story has a few twists and turns that introduces us more to the city itself, and to be honest, the highlight is the character in the early dynamics, like I keep saying. As I mentioned, for the most part, Augie is in the middle of those dynamics. Whether it's Howard's condescending mentorship.
Are you familiar with the term a hypothesis? Do you know it?
Yeah.
Great. It's like I'll help you, but obviously you know it. It's like an educated guess before you have all the information.
Did you need some help pulling that stick out of your ass?
Oh.
Because I know what a hypothesis is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult your intelligence or knowledge. Apologies. So if you had one for this particular scenario that you experienced tonight, what do you think happened? Was it the charcoal?
I don't know.
Charlotte's desperate guardianship.
I wish you weren't here.
Well, that's not very kind, Charlie.
Or Arlo's amusing fondness of Augie.
She's my woman.
Oh, yes, Augie and I have been dating. We're quite betrothed.
It's fine. It's fine. You can tell her anything you want.
Moving up, I say.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. Don't worry about it.
All of the characters manage to find something humanizing within him, which in turn causes them to look into their own reflections and see the humanity they themselves have lost or might be losing while working for Candela Obscura. And we get to see those relationships develop as they head back to Donald's apartment in order to investigate more thoroughly. And the entire theme of this campaign seems to be humanity and what is lost in the pursuit of learning more, and this is specifically shown through Charlotte, Howard, and Arlo's reactions to Augie, as well as to the reactions to themselves as they change over the course of these 3 episodes. Anyways, they arrive to the apartment and find it almost entirely tossed and barren of any clues, as the periphery has totally investigated everything that's there. While this happens, a strange ghost begins to rise up through the floor. My mic fell. I can't re-mic myself. While they investigate, a strange ghost begins to rise through the... Nope. While this happens, a strange ghost begins to investigate the floorboard. Why would the ghost be investigating the floorboards? As they investigate, they begin to see a strange ghostly apparition rise through the floorboards. And as they turn around, they see the glowing apparition of Donald himself, now desperate to find some amount of warmth.
What a genius!
It's about this moment the temperature begins to drop.
Uh-oh.
Even lower.
It's
And
disconcerting.
colder.
We didn't cause that, did we?
As you kind of begin to look at each other. And this faint, pale blue light begins to glow behind where Arlo stands. Here, as you see a humanoid figure just begin to drift into the air, about 1.5 feet off the ground, emanating this pale blue light. As it drifts, it comes into sharp focus, and you can see the elderly image of Donald Kinzel drifting in the air, head to one side, eyes black, sunken and vacant, the jaw slack and open, a void, a darkness, the arms stretched out, extended, as it begins to inhale.
Donald? Are you okay?
What's happening?
Where are you?
Where am I?
This entire scenario is a great example of what Candela Obscura does best. As they try and get away from Donald, the danger is not necessarily there because of Donald. He slowly moves towards them. He says, "I need warmth." But as he does so, he doesn't touch them. The danger comes through dice rolling. Because see, in Candela Obscura, typically damage will only occur if you roll and fail. And you only roll when you attempt to accomplish something. This means that it is up to the players to act in order to progress the story. And I'll get more into that in a moment. But over the course of this entire encounter, Arlo uses a specific ability called Let Them In, which I will let Matt describe real quick.
I have a question. So, one of my abilities is Let Them In. But that's if I've taken a bleed in relation to that phenomenon.
Correct.
Which I did earlier because of Augie's coat.
Yes, yes you did.
Is it possible to quickly remove my glove that I had and feel my hand of where the bleed had hit it earlier?
In this instant, I'll allow that, yeah.
All right. All right, then with this ability, whenever I take one or more bleed marks, I also gain additional information about the phenomenon that harmed you.
All right. So, first, I want you to describe what everyone sees when you take your glove off.
When I remove my glove, you'll see that my hand is not what you would expect. It is a gray in color. My nails have turned black. The skin is cracked along the hand and along my forearm. You'll see just scratch marks, deep gashes that look old, but not healed.
Through failure, she is able to learn a further amount about this character. And now they've learned that Donald apparently got this coal from some place called the Foundry, or at least they found out that somebody had gotten it from the Foundry and sold it to him, so now they have a lead. Through a lot of rolls, they managed to get out of the window and escape without anybody hurting, though we do see Augie really struggle with this scenario. He sees his friend now really in pain, seemingly hurt, and there's nothing he could do about it, and so all he could do is look and mournfully see Donald and try and calm him down before leaving, now determined to to find what has harmed his friend and put a stop to it. This is the first time Augie has seen what the bleed can do to other people. He has seen why Candela Obscura acts, because it is to prevent other people from getting harmed by the unknown. And he has a drive to finish this mission. So they go find whoever sold this to Donald, and they find from that individual that Donald received this coal from a place called the Foundry. And the Foundry is this strange industrial complex where they typically process the coal, and so they began heading that direction. And this is where the third act of the entire campaign begins. As they make their way there, they begin to see some sort of complication in the road. Apparently there have been some bodies found in the road, frozen and dead, clearly meaning that whatever they're looking for is along this way. As they continue to progress, they see more people and more bodies, and they have to rush towards the Foundry in order to find out what's happening. And as they get there, there's a massive explosion and 2 people come running out, screaming in pain and agony.
Are open, and steam is billowing out from them, and you see 2 figures, 2 people come screaming out. Just come running out into the night on 2 different sides. He's like, there's something in there. Hold on. The whole place is filled with smoke.
Use your bleed detector. Do we see it on him?
Help him, doctor. Help him.
Yeah, doctor. Help me!
No,
help me!
PhD, not MD.
Is he burnt? You're burned.
He has like they're not serious burns, but you can do. There is like some low level burns in his body.
But my specialty is in medical ethics, and I've met many doctors. I have a master's degree in chemistry. You don't care about any of this. And as he's mumbling to himself, I'm gonna go ahead and pull out my safety equipment.
They help one of the individuals and find out that something, a dark, shadowy individual, has been tearing apart the inside of the Foundry, and they have no choice but to try and go in and prevent it, but they're not sure if that's what they should do. See, the problem is they don't know anything about this thing. They don't know what it is, how to stop it, what it's capable of, and so they stop outside the Foundry and trying to decide what to do. Howard says something in particular which I really think resonated with me.
This is one of those moments where we decide who we are.
As Howard looks at everybody, he says, "This is one of those moments where we decide who we are." And that is, I truly think, the defining purpose of this campaign. I won't get into it too much as we're still in the first episode, but this line is going to come back in a big way. So I want to highlight it now when it happens so we can revisit it and memorize it. Now that being said, they decide who they are in this moment and decide to rush into the Foundry without having enough information. As they enter, they see 5 frozen bodies and blue lights that are forming humanoid shapes floating above them, similarly to Donald. Fortunately, as long as they don't get close enough, they don't seem to be an issue, but that's not what the real danger of this situation is. They know there's a creature here that is causing this to happen. There's ice everywhere, like large, massive glaciers that are stretching across the walls, and as they begin to slip into the door, Arlo accidentally gashes herself on one of these icicles, and we see that there's no blood within.
I'll turn around and run back into the Foundry.
Okay, you run back, and the door they entered is currently closed and frosted over.
Oh no. Pushing on the door? Anything?
If you'd like to make a strike test to see if you can somehow break the ice that encases the doorway and force it open.
Oh, I take the lower. It's a fail.
You're desperately pushing and pushing, and you slam into it once more, not realizing that some of the ice that gathered on the side has a bit of a jagged edge to it, and end up taking your gray hand and like impaling it slightly on the piece of ice. It doesn't hurt, but as you pull away, you can see there is now a gash in it, that where it's open, you can see what would be exposed flesh. Instead, it looks almost like just a vacuous void of nothing beyond the torn skin.
This is a reference to something more, that one interaction she once had, and we will see more of it later. Arlo decides to start a vehicle and crash it straight into the wall.
That's okay. I'm just going to drive forward and try to drive it into the doors.
That's
now I'd like you to make a drive test.
That's my girl. Control.
Come on. There's airbags, right? We've got airbags.
She is the airbag.
Okay. I'm gonna use my last drive.
You got it.
Yes.
You got it. Use your last
Strong,
drive.
strong, independent, 20th century woman can do it.
Drive, baby.
Okay. Get out of the way this time. No.
We failed.
Every one of them. 1, 2, 3.
No. I know, it's such a brave, beautiful woman.
That doesn't work, go figure. And so instead, Howard rushes over to the door, now partially ajar thanks to the vehicle, and attempts to get it open. While this happens, he makes a partial failure, which means damage. A massive shadowy figure suddenly stretches out and grabs onto his head, digging into his skull, and he takes a piece of brain damage.
Darts into the chamber as you're trying to smash this door, and instead it strikes right into your body from behind. You feel your entire form begin to seize up in pain. You take a bleed, my friend.
While this occurs, Howard specifically describes why this is terrible, and Robbie gives us a better insight into Howard's mind.
You immediately kind of like turn around and try and pull away from this striking pain. How does this bleed affect you? How does it strike its way into your perception?
It's the strangest part is it's familiar. It harkens back to a memory from a year ago, and it fills me with guilt and revulsion and shame, and it affects my mind, which is one of the highest guarded place of me, and it's the worst experience.
You hear a voice ring through your mind. You fool! That memory strikes and you take a brain as well.
Oh no, you did it to yourself.
You snake us!
But as you wrestle yourself away from this frozen form, you do manage to force the door just barely open before you stumble and tumble onto the ground.
We see that Howard hates having his brain damaged. It is the worst thing that could possibly happen to him to have his knowledge harmed. He must know more. He must understand the world around him because something in the past happened that he didn't understand. This will also come into play later. But that being said, he manages to wrench open the door and there is tons of coal everywhere, which means everyone needs to begin to search. Augie rushes forward and begins to do so, but as he does, a massive shadowy hand juts out of his back through his chest and lifts him into the air. In a panic, Charlotte screams and lights her scarf on fire, temporarily attracting the individual and causing him to rush towards Charlotte while they continue to search. Arlo, unable to find anything, eventually begins to use that sense that she has, that attunement to the bleed, as well as using an actual bleed detector, a device that, well, detects bleed, in order to find whatever is occurring. They find a strange obsidian piece amongst the coal, just black enough to be recognized as coal, with runic symbols inside of it. Through some investigation, they find out that these runes need something, and in a desperate ploy, Charlotte and Arlo both tear open their hands and begin to pour blood in.
I'm gonna bite my hand as hard as I can and try to put some blood in those groups and see if it does anything.
Okay, you bite your hand, your left hand.
Oh, why did I do that? I have a fucking shitty blood all over my face. Why did I do that instead? That's stupid. Hey!
Okay.
And as I pull forward, you see a hidden jackknife just appear into my hand from my sleeve. I flip it open, I cut my hand open, and I put it on the...
Okay, mark a body.
Yes.
I'm actually just realizing right now while reading my script, is a contradiction, because earlier she gashed open herself and there was just a void within, but now she has blood.
You bite your hand, your left hand.
Shitty blood all over my face. Why did I do that instead?
Oops.
I have no explanation for this. I'm sure there was one. Regardless, they begin to pour blood into the runes, and whether it's because blood needed to go in or simply because the runes recognize the heat of their bodies, it begins to glow. A red, hot, searing glow as chains begin to fly out and float into the air, fiery, ethereal chains, and as this shadowy creature sees it, it begins to screech and run, but the chains reach out, grabbing it and dragging it into the obsidian. And with that, they have completed this mission.
Oh, I don't want to do any of this!
As you set it down, it kind of like onto the ground, and the shadow creature kind of swoops up and seems to take in the sight of what you've just set before it. And it spins to go just as the runes glow brightly, and you watch as these red tethers whip out like dozens of tentacles that just wrapping around it before pulling it back into this chunk of ancient obsidian. Before it just goes quiet.
They have defeated this individual. Now all that's left is to get the obsidian back to Candela Obscura, which they do so. Now, at this point, this show obviously winds down, and each one has something called a post-show. The post-show really isn't that important, and I will get to the important bits if they ever show up, but what you really need to know is it really shows how the group uses their resources to heal, because this is a very resource-intensive game. It also just gives us further insight into who the players are.
Now, these resources do not refresh until you complete the illumination track. These have to last you through the end of the tracks going, which means...
Oh, for our next couple games.
Exactly.
Got
so
it.
these have to last you through the rest of the next 2 sessions. So the first ones, the stitches, a person can spend one to just clear all of the marks they've taken. Refresh gives all your drives back and your resistances. And train, you can spend them to give yourself a dice that you can use on any roll during your next assignment. So you got 5 of each to last you basically through your 3-episode arc.
If you watched this show but didn't watch the post show, I would honestly encourage you to do so, because I do think it is very fun and gives some highlights, but for this one specifically, not much happens. All we know is that Augie promises to consider joining Candela Obscura, but seems a little shaken. And as Charlotte approaches him and talks to him, she lets him know that she once also suffered an event much like this at the same age as Augie. And she joined Candela to make sure nobody would have to suffer such things again like she did, and she feels like she failed him. But at the same time, she's glad that he's here because at least she can watch over him. And with that, the episode comes to a close.
I believe that's all the resources we've spent between sessions here. And with that, we close this first episode of Candela Obscura. Thank you so much, my wonderful players. Robbie Damon, Laura Bailey, Anjali Bhamani, Ashley Johnson. I'm your game master, Matthew Mercer. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you soon for the next episode of Candela Obscura.
Down in the comments, you guys should say which animal you are. We've already shown Thor, Nox, and Potato, right? So here is Beanie, Leia, and Vader.
Tag yourself in the comments. I'm Vader.
I'm Vader too. I feel like you're more of a potato, Jay.
No, you shut your fucking mouth. Now, with all that said, let me talk about my thoughts on the episode, and more specifically about Candela Obscura. The thing I'm coming to love most about the system is that the damage and danger only ever comes when the players attempt something. Any action you take risks a failure, and when that leads to a consequence, the danger occurs because the players did something and were proactive. As they attempt to solve the mystery, as they attempt to protect the innocents, they put themselves in danger, and therefore something happens. The system inevitably leads to a natural deterrent from one of the biggest pitfalls in all of TTRPGs, reactive player characters who are merely led through a story rather than writing one with the GM. It's way too common for a GM to write a story and just push the players through it without the story having any agency from the players, and that's exhausting and boring, and this system actually encourages you to do the opposite. And I love it. Honestly, I would love to get my hands on this and play this game whenever I get the chance to anyways. But regardless, it is an incredible display of proper design, and I really do applaud Darrington Press, because for those of you guys who don't know, it's not just Critical Role who made this. There are actual designers of the game who you probably haven't heard of.
Hey friends, my name is Spencer Stark. I'm one of the designers of Candela Obscura, a brand new horror role-playing game that follows a centuries-old secret society on their quest to protect humanity from the terrors of the unknown.
Please go look them out and give them your attention, because they deserve it. They did a great job designing the system, and I would hate if it just kind of fell behind the wayside, just known as Critical Role's TTRPG, instead of the people who really put a lot of effort into it. But with that being said, this first episode really drew me in because of the character dynamics. The entire mystery is pretty well done by Matt, but it's pretty cut and dry. Kind of a Scooby-Doo-esque thing, honestly. Not that that's any kind of actual criticism, it's just kind of what it felt like, you know? But regardless, it was very well done, but I really enjoyed watching the players and their characters, and trust me, their characters grow. Candela Obscura encourages player growth and character growth, and I really love seeing that, and it's why I wanted to do this video. So that being said, we're gonna move on to episode 2, but before we do, I posted 2 pictures of myself on my community page prior to fully recording this episode. And I promised that if anybody guessed the right campaign that I was talking about just based off those pictures, they would be able to get a special shout out in the video. This is our intermission, by the way, because this is gonna be a longer video. So far, the most liked guess, A Court of Fae and Fairies.
Wrong!
Wrong. or Dungeons and Drag Queens.
And by wearing a wraith clasp, you may disguise yourself as a member of the dead. So attaching them to your body.
Drag. We are getting in drag, honey. As an undead baby.
Also wrong. But honestly, the two best questions, like best guesses for sure.
Alaska Thunderfuck 5000 is my queen!
Someday I'll probably actually review those series. But, well, yes, that would make sense. But the mistake that you made, okay, is that you expected me to give any kind of logic or any kind of reasoning. And as we all know, that doesn't exist on this channel. So even though, yes, inherently those were very, very good guesses. Anyways, so no correct guesses yet. We shall see.
Also, Jay didn't tell me the series that I was doing the makeup for, so I just kind of did it based off of what I could remember of anybody from any of the D&D things wearing makeup.
And it was Dungeons and Drag Queens.
What about it? Maybe because I've watched that and that's the only live play series I've watched.
I look fabulous, so I'm not complaining. Episode 2 begins with Augie waking up early, having spent weeks at his new quarters in the Gilded Rainbow shop, which I forgot to mention. Augie now has a new place in the bookshop because he's part of Candela Obscura. Good for him. He went up in the world.
To the smell of fresh coffee as Reggie is sipping from his mug and currently going through the morning paper as you kind of step out of the room, kind of looks over her shoulder towards you and goes, "Morning, Reggie."
Good morning, Reggie. What's going on?
I totally did. Sorry, that was the brain. So I'd like to say good morning to myself as well sometimes. Keep you on edge. Good morning.
I was gonna say, thought you were correcting me or something. I'm gonna say hello.
No, you're good.
Wait.
Good morning to you as well, Augie. Glad we're both present.
Lightkeeper Alexandra O'Neill walks in and greets them. There's been an event, and the circle will be called together. Over the next hours, the other circle members arrive and they are briefed on the overnight events of Onette Ferris, a primary chamberwoman deeply involved in guild and important tariffs.
Word has gotten around here that a primacy chamberwoman's hotel room was attacked last night. The chamber was apparently left in absolute disarray. She is nowhere to be found. A handful of folks who were wandering the streets at that hour recall seeing something massive rushing to or from the scene in shadow, like some beast. Whatever took her is likely not natural and has definitely garnered Candela's attention.
Now, this being said, they believe that one of these attacks that happened on Onette was probably politically motivated, and she was attacked by something that seems superstitious in nature, but they don't truly know what it was. So it's tasked to the group to find out and try and retrieve her. They're given their first lead as they're told that there was a passerby nearby that saw something shadowy and massive running out of the street immediately after the attacks, and so they are sent to investigate. Now, they're given their first lead almost immediately, told that a passerby saw something large and mysterious crashing through the halls almost immediately after this attack. And so they're sent to the Getaway Grand Hotel where this all occurred. As they go, they are told that the Periphery is already investigating and they need to hurry if they're not going to miss out on anything. However, when they get there, they find that, yeah, actually the Periphery is already there and guarding the hotel. And though they try to get in, they fail massively, mostly due to Anjali tricking herself by naming an NPC the same thing as the DM, which really throws her off.
GM would let me. Would you write a letter to the front desk for me and let Matthew know that let Matthew know that Miss what's my name?
Charlotte.
I just
Happens to me every day.
as soon as I realized Matthew, great, I need
Everything
more
else is
caffeine.
shot out of the head.
I just like
Yep.
as soon as I realized that. Right, it's very serious business.
Pro tip to everybody, don't try and make up an NPC on the spot and name it the same thing as the DM, because apparently it will lead to you forgetting your own name, which is truly impressive. So, knowing that they have to return in an hour, they instead decide to go nearby towards one of the alleyways in order to find out what happened. There, they notice a blown out window on the 6th floor and a homeless person nearby who they begin to question. In this interaction, we see Augie once again showing his genuine empathy as he really cares for this individual, Terry. He barely knows anything about him, but still goes out of his way to take care of him, and we also get to see Arlo showing her genuine fondness for Augie in a very cute interaction.
I've been only talking to you this whole time, and you kind of approached it. I was like, "What? Wait, I got nothing. It's fine."
No. They're all with me. She's my woman.
Oh, yes, Augie and I have been dating. We're quite betrothed.
As they talk to this person, they learn that he was there the night prior with his two friends, where they were indulging in less than legal substances. As everything occurred, unfortunately, their friend Enom was taken by whatever this beast was, and while he didn't see much, his friend Skitty did. They ask where Skitty is, they're told that he's nearby trying to sober up, and so they begin to head that direction in order to learn exactly what happened from Skitty himself. However, while they head that direction, Howard finds a twitching, unnatural piece of flesh and leans down to pick it up. He's encouraged not to, but does so anyways, at which point it latches onto his hand and begins to try and burrow into it.
Point to what you're looking at.
I think we can all see it. I'm gonna touch it.
Don't do it.
Okay.
Don't touch it.
Makes that horrible slimy sound.
Yeah.
It twitches twice in your grasp, and then begins to climb your finger.
No,
this was a mistake.
I'm getting the bleed containment vial and putting it right underneath it.
You put it underneath it, and it's not coming free. And as you look, it's pushing into your skin. It's pushing into your hand.
It's a unique sensation.
Pull out my jackknife and just start, without touching it, start to try to carve it off the finger part.
Charlotte, with some really good rolls and quick thinking, manages to remove it, and Howard is immediately chastised for his insistence on using intelligence over wisdom, on not thinking about his own well-being. Arlo specifically seems to be the one who gets through to him.
I am certainly hungry after that experience.
Professor, why did you pick it up with your fingers?
Well, I suppose it was an experiment of sorts.
With your own flesh?
Well, that's some of the greatest scientists of all time have used themselves as their
Howard.
guinea pig. Yes?
This may not be a time to worry about your reputation as a professor or aggrandizing yourself in terms of... You have to be more careful.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I thought you were the smart guy over here. Even I wouldn't have touched that fucking thing. What a genius.
It all worked out, though, didn't it? Huh? The variables were in place. Everyone played their part. Good gravy, I'm hungry.
I understand the lure of such unknowns. But don't put yourself on the line if unnecessary. The payoff isn't worth it, trust me.
I thought I was the lecturer here. Duly noted, thank you. Oh, duly noted. And I'll actually note it.
I highlight this because I think it is another great example of Howard trying extremely hard to take care of learning without taking care of himself. He is so insistent on learning about what is out there that he doesn't understand that he harms himself in the process, and this will be a theme. And I think that Arlo's chastising also shows incredibly well her understanding of these things that they're dealing with, and the fact that Howard doesn't want to know about them. He thinks he does, but she knows what it's like to touch these things. She knows what it's like to be touched by them. And so we learn more about these characters, but we move on as they begin to head towards the Good Gravy Eatery, which is where they know that Skitty is. Again, Skitty is incredibly nervous, and as they get there, Howard is told to wait behind, and everybody keeps an eye on him. Arlo specifically, now worried about his actions and feeling like he cannot be trusted. See, Howard is a scientist and an avid learner, but what he desires to learn isn't something that's meant to be understood. Although subtle, this is going to create my favorite character arc in the entire story that I really feel ties back to everybody else. Regardless, in talking with Skitty, they learn that Enom was taken by a large creature, and while Augie talks to him and cares about him greatly, making sure that Skitty is well taken care of and made to feel very safe, they learn that there's not much more to learn other than the fact that Enom apparently played a guitar, which is something that will be led to later. They return to the unguarded hotel and sneak into the room on the 6th floor. While they do so, they find yet another periphery officer waiting there, but Arlo takes care of this very handily.
I'll keep walking down the hallway and then I'll just go, oh, and I'll fall to the ground. Oh.
Like you got the vapors?
Amazing.
Okay.
Sure enough. Oh dear. Miss, you all right? Miss, you all right? Oh, comes over and kind of looks to you and starts, miss, like lightly taps you on the cheek. Oh dear, hold on, I've got something for this. So it's going through his pouches, while the rest of you kind of dart by and head into the room.
-1 Arlo, who's still keeping the periphery officer distracted. They find that they're not alone in there. In fact, there are 2 other individuals. A witness who's being questioned, and the captain of the periphery guard.
The second thing you see is a man about 6'1", who is standing on the threshold of the bathroom of this room, himself dressed in periphery uniform, hat off, with what looks to be a captain's badge on his shoulder that turns and goes, "Excuse me, may I ask who this is and what the meaning of this is? This is a crime scene."
To be fair, this wasn't something they could expect, and they are very good at talking their way out of situations. So with smart and intelligent wordplay, they...
And I am going...
Don't do it. Please don't do it.
I am going to pull my hand out of my pocket!
We said no.
And I'm going to try to pull one right between his eyes.
Okay. And then there's this moment of, he kind of looks at you with a curious glance, aware of the strange change in demeanor as you lift it from your pocket. He begins
Slowly.
And the punch isn't like an Indiana Jones punch. He just kind of goes, boink, and right between the eyes. It's just like a straight jab.
Yeah, and if you've never heard a person punched straight square in the face and the nose, it isn't like the fun video game movie. It's like it's a horrible honking sound as he just like his eyes cross a bit. You can see a little blood trickle from the nose, and he just full on flatboard onto the wooden ground of the inside right as you walk in.
What happened?
Hello, Arlo.
Howard went rogue.
Okay, well, at least the situation is taken care of, and then they can move forward without doing anything stupid.
I know we fell over. I'm gonna just kind of like act like I'm waking him up, like just patting him, but I'm also want to take his badge.
What happened?
Yes, lift it.
Okay, that was a solution, to be sure. But at least they don't leave any witness.
Oh, what happened around here? Did he just fall over?
He slipped and fell.
I need you.
No, it's the one I'm worst at!
Why did you drop?
I need you to roll sway for me right now. Roll sway for me.
Sway? I've got...
Right. So, you remember how I talked about the fact that there are consequences based on everything that happens in Candela? Believe it or not, there are consequences to beating up the captain of the guard, leaving him unconscious, stealing his gun and badge, and letting a witness get away. But we'll see most of the consequences of that later in this episode and in the 3rd episode. Regardless, they somehow managed to get out of that situation without being totally arrested, but it's still not a great situation. They begin to head out, and they begin to make a connection. They realize that many of the things that they've learned actually connect a few musicians. And so maybe, just maybe, there might be something about that. However, those consequences actually hit them a lot faster than they expect, as it turns out there's an OUP officer who's following them as they leave.
You kind of glance over your shoulder and you can see one OUP-coded figure is trailing back about 2 blocks behind you, following you as you journey. And that's where I'm going to take a break. Oh! So we're about at that time.
In a rush, they try and hop onto a train to escape him, but he hops on immediately after them, leading to a very tense situation where he doesn't seem outwardly hostile, but he refuses to leave them alone. Something is happening, and they realize that this OUP officer is not following them because of what they did to the captain, but because he's actually been investigating them for some time and recognized them and is now following them. So through some very clever wordplay, Charlotte manages to get everybody else off the train and leaves just her and the officer. Honestly, it takes some doing, but with some clever uses of allies and a lot of different things, like trying to convince a priest to help her out.
Forgive me, Father. I have definitely sinned, and I have many transgressions to report, but right now I need your help. The gentleman you see outside has followed me. I don't know him. I don't know why he's following me, but I'm scared. Is there any place that I can go, perhaps, to sit and wait him out?
Make a sway roll.
Thank God.
Charlotte manages to shake the tail, It's honestly, truthfully, very impressive to watch Charlotte's intentional shrewdness constantly fail her because of dice rolls, and yet Anjali refuses to let that keep her down. See, she rolls badly for pretty much the entirety of the campaign, but she still finds a way to make her character seem intelligent despite that. She is still smart, she takes the rolls with stride, she takes her failures well in hand, and I cannot applaud enough a player who's able to take failures and make them into successes. That is what TTRPGs are all about, and I do think that she does a fantastic job of that and deserves some amount of recognition from it. I think honestly that's what caused her to go under the radar for me the first time I watched it, because she didn't make very many good rolls, but it's still failures that she uses that turn into successes because of her intelligence and good roleplay that I think deserves some amount of recognition. So good on Anjali and good on Charlotte. That being said, Charlotte manages to shake the tail and they get everybody back together afterwards. After they all collect together, they decide to go investigate this lead about the musicians. They head to the Revisionary restaurant and they learn that there was a trio that was supposed to play there, including Kara. Kara was the witness that they actually let get away in the apartment beforehand, so this is already suspicious because she mentioned nothing about knowing the previous victims, so something is obviously occurring. In order to learn what's happening, they begin talking to everybody who has ever interacted with anybody who was involved with Onette, and eventually come across her husband, in which case they have a conversation where he reveals that he actually got her a very strange emerald necklace recently from a very mysterious circumstance.
Onette's very particular about her presents, you see, so make sure that I don't get her the wrong thing. Gonna take her shopping for what she wants. So we went out and went shopping. Went and got her something nice, and went and had dinner, and then came home, and that was it.
What did you get her by any chance?
I had this necklace commissioned by this person that was a friend of hers, named Dorna. Dorna, what was the name? He thinks to himself for a second. Dorna Ashfar. She runs the Alizarin Gallery in the Varnish.
That's right.
I was gonna say, your artwork, is any of this like
Yeah, most of the
old
stuff.
fair, and is this all from that gallery?
Probably. Some of the creepier shit. Yeah, I don't pick this. This is all Onette's thing. She's been going to that gallery for the past 6 or so months, and so I figured that'd be a good place to ask.
What did the jewelry look like?
Oh, it was he kind of catches himself for a second. Ironically, imported from otherwhere. This beautiful emerald that Dorna showed us, and presented as an intricate and rare piece, technically illegal and contraband because of the source, which of course enticed Onette. And so I paid a healthy sum to have it crafted into a necklace, and held onto it until it was time to go ahead and give it to her the night of the anniversary.
Had Kara, her assistant, ever seen the necklace?
I don't believe so.
And that is probably their weapon, their smoking gun. As they talk to him, they also learn he has a strange infection in his hands, similar to what they had learned earlier when, well, you know, Howard tried to pick up that piece of flesh. And so as they leave, Arlo gives a very good piece of advice.
You should cut your hand off.
I think that was just
Oh boy.
Oh, well, right. Remember when I said that your directness was an asset? Perhaps just among
should, though.
yes,
He
but,
should.
perhaps just among us.
That he could turn into a monster. We should cut his hand off.
Oh, I'd be delighted.
It's
Who knows what that burrowing thing could do?
I think he has some time.
How do you know?
Well, it's been a few days and it's only in his hand. It hasn't taken. We've seen what happens when it takes over. He should be fine until we figure out the more immediate problem.
Howard, if he turns into a monster, I'm blaming you. You should have cut his hand off.
Is that
Honestly, this bluntness is a great example of Laura playing an underappreciated character, because I do think she's been very under the radar, but the times where Arlo comes out and is this blunt is a great example of somebody who's just not that well learned in society. Yes, she's rich, but because she's rich and because she's sheltered, she doesn't really know how to interact with other people, and that leads to this scenario. Not only that, we also learn more about Arlo and learn that the reason that she is so cautious is because her fiancé was stolen by a portal. And because of that, she reached into the portal, and that's why she's infected as well. She knows what it's like to have a hand that's been touched by the bleed, and as she reveals to everybody else, there is a gash in her palm that leads somewhere. They're not sure where.
Is that what's on your hand?
Oh, no. I have a weird void inside of mine.
And you go and look and see there is a split in the middle of the palm that is about the size of a nickel. And it is just this black darkness.
It's quite something, isn't it?
Why is that there?
My fiance was taken. Eddie. You know, he was quite interested in old fair relics, and he may have done some bad things, and, well, I came to see him, and he was being pulled through some sort of doorway or portal or hole. And I tried to save him. My arm went through. And well, I pulled my arm back out, and Eddie did not come back out.
I have a theory it's some sort of parallel dimension. A physical space you can enter and then re-enter, but since only part of her body went in, well, I can't proclaim to know. But poor Eddie is... I'm sure he's fine.
He could still be there.
He could. Anything's possible.
The creature who took him had gray skin. Maybe I'm turning into one.
And so she knows what it's like and how dangerous it is. And so while she's being brash by telling him to cut off his hand, she also knows exactly what she's talking about. It's a very fun duality to this character that I very much enjoy seeing. Regardless, the party heads to their final clue, a woman named Dorna who sold this emerald locket to the husband in the first place. When they get there, they find her in this strange, like, kind of bizarre almost. She has created this place where she could sell these old artifacts that are almost certainly all cursed to very rich individuals. Getting inside, Charlotte's one of the only ones who is actually able to have the connections to get close enough to Dorna to begin to ask her questions, while everybody else is incidentally kicked out of the entire place for different reasons.
Careful of the placement of your hands.
Oh, did you just touch her? Did you just touch her somewhere that you shouldn't have touched her?
No, I touched her shoulders. What?
Do I need to make a report here, ma'am? Do I need to go inside and get mad at this?
It's fine.
Puts his arms behind his back and just leans in towards you.
Come on, lean a little further. What do you want?
Excuse me.
Oh.
Hello. Thank you for getting rid of this rabble. I would love to thank Dorna for the... What was your first name again? What was your name?
Dakan.
Thank you, Dakan. I'll step outside here and have a smoke, and I'll see you in a minute.
Hey, screw all you rich people anyway. This is all hoity-toity bullshit.
This
is not even real.
How did they even get in here? I saw him earlier. I was wondering how I walked around here. People like certain
It's
whisper.
fake art. It's fake.
While this happens, Charlotte manages to get Dorna to go to her office to collect something, and then all the shit hits the fan.
What time is it? It's starting to get quite
Jesus, my God.
You hear this heavy
dick.
explosion. Some sort of a loud impact from the far end of the room.
I just peed.
Everyone in the room just goes, what? You hear it again. Screams from inside the room as everyone goes running out the front door. Everybody in this entire gallery begins to filter out, screaming and running, pushing each other out of the way. You can see as the men you were just talking to gets like pushed out into the front of the street and knocks over. You run inside.
I run as well.
All right, it is challenging, and you hear this heavily on the other side of the room.
Charlie?
You see the door kind of like poof, and you hear screams from the inside of the office, as well as what sounds like heavy bricks falling, and another like breaking and thrashing of materials and furniture.
Give me the bacon. Give it back.
You have two of them. There were two.
Do I have it? I have it.
Give them all.
All right.
I know. It's so scary. It's so scary.
Come in. Oh God, this is crazy, but let's do it. I'm gonna start kicking the door to try to kick the door down.
Just go ahead. I need you to make a strike roll for me.
I suck at strike. Anyone want to be beefy boy? Beefy boy?
You're pushing through the crowd.
This is our judgment. You're
fighting upstream as people are screaming and rushing out of the room.
I'm gonna try.
I'm gonna try to strike.
Strike, yeah.
Explosions are heard from inside the gallery, and the party finds a grotesque multi-limbed creature within the office, and they're pretty sure it is stolen Dorna. They don't get a very good look at it as it crashes through the window, and while some of them chase after it, the others stay behind. Augie and Charlotte try and look through the entire office to find any sort of answers over what that creature was, while Arlo and Howard rush into the alleyway chasing after it, leading to an altercation that does not end well.
Right as you turn the corner and spin, you see this mass of like 7 or 8 arms in front of you, and you see multiple heads staring at you. 2 heads in particular that are facing each other, that kind of turn and face you. A woman's head and a man's head, as they both pull apart their bodies like a mouth. And you can see their torsos facing each other, like they were locked in the process of making love, and where their waists are, their hips are fused, and out of their bodies, these teeth have grown beyond their torsos and chest to form a massive crocodile-like mouth of flesh, as they both go, and it reaches out to try and grab and pull you into its mouth. The arms grab you and begin dragging you in. You watch as Howard is now being pulled into its mouth. You take a body as it begins to like pull you across the teeth, and the weird jagged parts of its like extended fingers are.
Punch it! Let us get punch it! Punch it in the faces!
You took a moment. We'll get there in a second.
Unfortunately, Howard manages to get harmed to the point where he takes a brain scar, and therefore is so harmed he is incapacitated for the rest of the scene, as what happens when you take a scar.
The knuckles unused, but grabbed in place as another face kind of like emerges and goes into you, and you take another brain.
Another brain?
Oh boy.
Uh-oh. Is that your third?
My mind snaps. Absolutely beyond the realm of comprehension, and I believe I'm out.
You're out for this scene right now.
But that was your fourth?
That's it, baby. I'm gonna have a
No,
scar.
but three, you take it on the fourth, right?
You just took
was
it fourth.
my fourth. That's a scar at the end of the night for you, boy. If I'm still alive, you nerds, help me!
Meanwhile, Arlo is desperately trying to do anything against this creature, which is so grotesque and so horrible because it is the amalgamation of every single person that it has stolen. Meanwhile, Charlotte and Augie actually manage to find something, a strange briefcase with some sort of obsidian shards in it. Grabbing it, they rush after the creature, and fortunately, thinking quickly, Charlotte's able to use these shards to harm it, leaving it to have to run for its life, but while it does so, it grabs Charlotte and slams her against the wall, leaving her incredibly damaged. And thus, the entire party is left to try and nurse their wounds and get back together. Now, Howard has taken a scar, and this is the first real scar we have seen in this entire encounter, and therefore, we get to see what happens when a player describes it. And boy, does Robbie describe it.
Howard comes to, looks about, doesn't say a word to any of his friends, and he pulls his little kit out of his jacket. It's his laboratory equipment. He just sits it on his lap, and he removes a scalpel, and he removes his hat, and he makes a small incision in the top of his own head, about 3 inches or so wide, parts it with his fingers, sets it back down. He pulls out a small handsaw with a crank, like a drill. It's got a circular drill bit in it. And he puts it on the top of his skull and just begins to crank.
Howard.
And crank.
Howard.
What's he doing?
And
Is this the wrong
crank.
thing?
Howard.
And you
course
sort
it's
of
not.
you sort of smell that powder, that earthy powder of bone mixed with blood. And then you just hear and a tiny piece of his skull comes out. And he puts it inside of his surgery equipment. Blinks his eye, squeezes his skin back together. It's bleeding pretty good. Puts his hat back on and says, well, sometimes you just have to expand your mind.
This shows Howard's descent into what I would like to call madness. It's not really madness, but it is definitely a descent into being willing to harm his own brain to learn more about what's out there, harming his intelligence, which is supposed to be one of the most important things to him, in order to learn more about what's beyond the supernatural veil. And I do find it very compelling. Regardless, the group gathers together and knows that they can't just leave this creature, so they continue to follow it and find that it's gone down into the tunnels beneath the city. It's gone somewhere deeper, and they follow after it because they know they must. While they do so, they discuss what they're going to do about it, and while they know they have the obsidian shards that only seem to hurt it, not kill it. And Augie suggests that maybe, just maybe, music might be the key. I mean, after all, it went after all those musicians. Maybe there's something to do with that. And so, as they begin to go down, they prepare for their final confrontation. They find it in a cavern deep underneath in the tunnels underneath the city. And that's where Augie decides to start trying to sing. And, you know, nobody's ever accused Ashley of being good at singing, I don't think.
Happy birthday to you.
Of all songs? Happy
It's the only one I
birthday.
think would make sense for this time.
I don't understand it at all.
Birthday to you.
Just start walking.
Birthday, happy birthday.
Okay, that's unfair. She actually did a fantastic job singing in Critical Role's theme song, but we've also seen her trying to sing Sam's famous D&D Beyond jingle, so, you know, this was kind of to be expected.
You got the perfect warlock. Her weapons and supplies.
Close?
But you need a place to track your stuff, because you're so disorganized.
No.
You click open a webpage.
That's the same.
You heard about a Critical Role.
That's good.
And now you're ready to kick some butt in a mine shaft full of no. There it is.
Shockingly, singing Happy Birthday to the terrible creature does not work, and it attacks.
All the heads look in your direction. They're charging towards you, rushing up the side and beginning to climb up to the front. What are you doing?
As it does so, it drops Dorna, who is still alive, at least as far as they can tell, and rushes at them. Charlotte manages to injure the creature with those obsidian shards, but it's not enough, and as she does so, it grabs her once again, flings her against the wall, this time totally knocking her unconscious and causing her to take a scar in body. The entire group is panicking at this point, and with shaky hands, Augie reaches into his pocket and pulls out the gun from the periphery officer and holds it, shaking, aiming and firing, and just barely managing to clip that emerald inside the creature.
I'm gonna try to shoot it.
So you go ahead and fire. You watch as the emerald suddenly shatters across the torso.
Oh.
All the heads scream, and as the mouth clamps shut, it charges towards you and gets up into the chamber, filling the entryway of this. As you begin to back away, holding the gun, you instinctively try to fire a second time into it. It doesn't seem to bother it as the arms reach out and grab you and begin to pull you into its body.
No, no!
You take a bleed.
But it doesn't break it, it just harms it, leaving the creature to still come after them. As it does so, they don't know what they can do, and while Howard is trying his best to help them, Arlo realizes there's nothing else they can do. This thing is going to get to them, it's going to kill them. And so she uses another one of her abilities, a forbidden ritual.
I'm removing my glove.
Okay.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna look at my hand. And I'm gonna start drawing some runes in the dust on the ground in the sewer on the cement. And I'm gonna slam my hand down onto it.
Okay.
And I'm gonna try to change the environment.
Okay, this is...
This is forbidden ritual.
Forbidden ritual.
What is it? What is it? What's forbidden ritual? What's it do?
I'm trying to shoot up some pillars in front of it
Okay.
to trap it in.
Now, the way the forbidden ritual works is it allows her to perform a magical feat of great power. Honestly, it's incredible. In this case, it allows her to totally change the entire scenario. It allows her to change the environment around her. However, it comes at a great cost of giving her an immediate scar and bleed. So as she does so, as she carves these runes into the ground and causes the entire earth to begin to erupt to trap this creature, to begin rushing it and squashing it and reducing it down to its basest parts, she feels the bleed begin to enter within her. She begins to feel that mark on her hand growing, becoming more powerful, taking a further toll on herself. It begins to creep up her arm, those black veins entering other parts of her. She sacrifices a piece of herself to destroy the creature, and as it does so, it reduces down to nothing, leaving the two people who originally created it, Onette and her forbidden lover, telling each other they're sorry before melting away and leaving the shards of the emerald.
Until eventually it's just the two lovers left. As the arms reach out, both heads facing opposite directions kind of fold out towards you. And they look sad and scared. And they both look at each other. And you hear Onette's voice independently say, "I'm so sorry." to the face of Waylon. And they both just collapse there in the middle of this tunnel. This tiny, crushed tunnel as all the skin begins to just melt away.
After this occurs, Augie collects it and they go to check on Charlotte, making sure she's okay. But unfortunately, her arm is now permanently damaged and her hand no longer works. They go back to the surface. They give the emerald to their lightkeeper, but this left a toll on them. Many scars. And it shows that honestly amazing constant theme throughout this entire story of what it takes to sacrifice yourself to protect others. How much are you willing to give up of yourself to make sure someone else is safe? And I do love that story. But it truly comes to a head in the 3rd episode. So let's get to that. And before we do, intermission, I will once again check the comments to see if anybody has guessed. All right, nobody has guessed. I'm going to guess that nobody is going to guess because, again, why in the world would you guess Candela Obscura when I look like this? I will highlight one of them. One comment says, I don't know. I just came to let you know that you look fabulous. So thank you. You know who you are. About a week has passed since the events of the previous episode, and Edmund Hornsbury, an emissary to Alexandra Elise O'Neill, arrives at Reggie's bookshop asking if Augie's Circle would be interested in new information concerning their last case. See, there's been a lead on what happened. Kara, that strange individual who had clearly been a witness but pretended not to be and then somehow managed to escape, has shown up elsewhere. They know that she's staying with her uncle at a cabin in the woods, and so they're sent to follow her and find out what happened. Unfortunately, upon arriving, they find out they've been too late.
You kind of come around to the side where she's just sitting, facing away from the door where you came from, as you begin to enter with your bleed detector. As you come in, you see the interior of this chamber is suffused in bleed. There is just scattering smatters of magic corruption across the interior of this room, just as you cross the threshold of view to see Kara sitting within the chair. And above her chin, just a flat, blank, faceless wall of skin, bereft of any features.
Augie, come back, come back.
They find her with no face. Simple skin where her face should be, and absolutely unmoving. Honestly, if any of you have ever seen the Doctor Who episode, The Idiot's Lantern, kind of exactly like that. I realize that's sort of like a deep cut. I don't know how many people have seen that. I assume a lot, because Doctor Who was one of the most watched shows ever at one point.
Do you know why? No? Because now, Detective Inspector Bishop, there is no power on this earth that can stop me.
Yeah, I just couldn't help but think of that every single time that I talked about this episode, so regardless, they find her without a face.
Is she breathing? How am I supposed to tell when there's no face?
I'm gonna walk up to her and put my hand on her chest to see if there's a rise and fall. Or...
She's warm, but there's no breath, there's no nostrils, there's no mouth. It's just a blank.
Like the skin's been pulled off and everything's...
Like,
it's just
like
skin?
it's
just
just skin. Like someone erased the features.
As they begin searching around, unfortunately, Arlo accidentally knocks over a shotgun, causing a loud bang, causing her uncle to begin rushing up, at which point they discover the threat of this episode. A large, massive, looming creature covered in what looked like possessed thorns and roots wrapped all around it. Humanoid, but not, it lands and stares at them. It begins to lift as it makes strange creaking and groaning noises, approaching them, trying to lean closer as if it too wants to take their face in the same way that it took Kara's.
Back, down.
Yeah, back away, out of the room.
You go to exit towards the room and the door closes right as you're about to get to it. As you see this long, thin, stretched hand that now currently reaches down from above. And as you follow it up the outstretched arm, the thousands and thousands of strange, wispy, hair-like roots that all encompass this extended limb. Like a massive shadow beard that just fills the entirety of its body. You follow it up to this massive, hunched creature that currently stands at an angle, defying gravity against the arched ceiling of this guest room.
This entire encounter is honestly terrifying, and Matt does a great job of showing how dangerous this new creature is. While they manage to escape it for a moment, they then have to start to chase through the woods as it chases, barreling after them like a wild animal. They discover that its weakness is fire and light, and so they begin to try and search for that, and an honestly brilliant move, Howard discovers a way to create a concoction that is highly flammable in the moment, and he throws it.
No fucking way.
And fails. And immediately soaks Augie in the substance, leaving Augie incredibly flammable, and now any fire they use is in danger of burning Augie to death.
Do not put any fire near me whatsoever!
Still, Augie, refusing to let this keep them down, takes off his coat and throws it at the creature, then asking them to light that on fire, and they manage to do so just enough to escape it. Not harm it, really, just get away. They take Kara and her unconscious uncle because Howard punched him too. Howard has an issue, okay? I don't know how else to address that. He really likes punching people unconscious.
Vincent.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm absolutely going to.
Oh, God.
I did leave my brass knuckles at home.
They take the two of them, and after convincing the uncle to go somewhere safe, they take Kara somewhere safe and begin to try and investigate what this creature is and exactly what led to this scenario.
Just go.
We'll tell our emissary to tell you that they enjoy the victory, boys, and that's how you'll know that it's from us, yes?
Handoff kind of waves you off and stumbles away. He seems very confused, conflicted, and shocked. He's processing what he just saw.
Can't imagine.
But for the time being, he's not breathing down your neck or calling for attention.
Let's go. Okay.
Now, Howard approaches everybody else in the circle and begins to talk to them, discussing that he would really like to return Kara's face. See, to Howard, he feels like a failure because in all of their investigations, they have yet to actually genuinely save anybody. He realizes that while yes, they have prevented more people from getting harmed, they have not saved any of the people they've attempted to. And he would really like to, just once, feel like they did it right. And as the rest of the circle looks at each other, they all agree. They've all come here to save people. They all want to save people. It's why they do this, and they haven't done so yet. And so they all agree. They will do anything they can to save Kara.
We haven't quite saved anyone yet, have we? And this young lady who was relatively kind enough, her faceless feature bothers me and fills me with an emotion I can only describe as anger. And if there's an opportunity to help her in some way, I would be just delighted. I'm a collector of sorts myself, and if this snatcher is collecting the faces of people, perhaps they still exist somewhere, and if possible, whatever we do, I would like to try to return it to this young lady. If we can't, that's okay, but if we can, it would be a personal request. That's all.
Absolutely.
At this point, Charlotte leads them to one of her contacts, Deegan, in order to find more information. They find out at a specific warehouse there is something going on, and as they go inside, they encounter Dorna, the same woman that they had actually managed to barely save from the creature in the previous episode. However, now her bottom half was mutated to the point of no longer being usable, leaving her wheelchair bound. In order to distract her, after Augie accidentally tumbles down and, well, really reveals her location, Charlotte begins to talk to Dorna and insists that she's on Dorna's side. She wants to find somebody who's going to work with her in this scenario. It's all a lie, of course, but it's anything to keep Dorna distracted, as well as a lot of guards that are there with her. As this happens, Arlo and Howard decide to create a distraction so they can learn more about whatever strange artifact that is here that may be causing that root creature. So they create an explosion, because anytime Howard is involved in anything, it cannot be subtle. So they created an explosion, and immediately all things go to hell.
And I think there may be some honesty to what you were saying, but everything about this circumstance to me is extremely fishy. And as much as I try and believe you, I haven't gotten this far in my life by opening myself. This massive cracking sound of an explosion. It's not flame, it's just like a flashbang in the corner of that room, just detonates. Bits of wood and dirt and broken crate just go flying from behind. Dorna's hair is like blown in front of her face for a second. She ducks down to the ground, her skirt blown to the side, and her weird like tendril legs now writhing on the ground as she almost like snakes away from the sound.
Ugh.
The two thugs like, one like puts the gun down for a second, like holds his ear. The other one like ducks and turns around to put his gun in that direction and sees nothing. What are you all doing?
Dorna suddenly reveals that she's in danger from a specific individual known as Lycus, who's obsessed with Old Fair and the Flare. All those things supernatural and beyond the void. As this happens, suddenly the creature attacks, using the explosion as a chance to get to Dorna, and as it does so, it leans over her, the roots wrapping around her head. She screams and then silence, and it drops her body. No longer a face on her.
As it's like clutching, and you start carving the hand free, and as they kind of cut free, you can see as she emerges from its grasp, the skin smooth lack of facial expressions upon her, as her body limply falls to the ground.
Yeah, I'm good. We're out of here.
As they attempt to fight it, the entire warehouse begins to catch fire because of, of course, there was an explosion and fire is also its weakness, so naturally, we'll just let it run everywhere, right? It kind of works. The creature does inevitably end up running off, and they escape amidst the chaos. In order to find any more clues, however, Arlo grabs a map in the entire chaos and knows that there is something else going on. There is something that has caused this creature to be summoned, and she thinks she has a location: the Van Helter. It's a junkyard that she believes there may be something hidden in a tunnel of an abandoned railway car, and so they begin to head there. As they do so, they go further underneath the city and find the ruins of Old Fair, which is what was built before New Fair. New Fair was built on top of it, and Old Fair is where all the dangerous stuff came from. And so this is naturally already a worry. And down there they find a portal. A portal surrounded by faceless bodies.
Slowly, you rise and rise, and you begin to watch this glow. You step up now to what appears to be a small camp that has been set up around this raised dais. And what you see around it, lit by this purple glow, looks like the shell of a temple, partially crumbled. First thing you notice is in the middle of this raised platform, a 10-foot-tall oval. A dark marble archway with about a half-foot to a foot section of it missing, though it does not prevent it from currently holding within it some sort of a sparkling, glowing ring. And within this ring of strange arcana is an absolute peek into nothingness. A black void of absence so dark, you've only seen it creep at the back of your mind the few times you've touched anything beyond the flare.
Now, before they can really do much, suddenly a figure begins to exit out of the portal, and while they all immediately assume it's a strange rooted creature, no. It is a well-dressed man known as Lycus, someone who has been secretly marionetting everything from the shadows. And as he looks at them, he begins a grand speech, insisting that they know nothing of the flare and beyond the supernatural. They don't know anything beyond the veil. They don't know that that is what humanity is destined for. They resist true, actual knowledge. And as he says this, he lifts an amulet, and something begins to come up from behind them. The massive, rooted creature. At this point, a conflict breaks out that is going to define every single individual in this entire fight. Augie immediately rushes at the man, insisting on getting that amulet from him. Charlotte attempts to distract the creature, while Howard and Arlo try and learn more to discover what's going on, and it immediately goes to hell. Augie is able to shoot the amulet out of the man's hand, however, he screams at him that he's a fool and immediately runs after them. And Augie and the man begin a fight over the entire amulet, which leads to Augie getting shot in the face.
Right as you hear this behind you, look, just as shards of obsidian end up piercing you in multiple places across the side of your face. You take 2 body marks from your proximity to this. And then continue, like stumble, rolling on the ground, get back up, and you're just covered in blood on the left side of your face.
Shrapnel is blown across, leaving a permanent scar, and as this occurs, Charlotte is thrown against the wall, once again being put unconscious as the creature slams her and leaves her there. This leaves Howard, who takes out an axe, calmly lights it, and runs at the creature, insisting on fighting it.
Quickly takes out a little skinny cigarette, lights it. Well, here we go. And takes the last little bit of his torch fuel and puts it on his axe, lights it on fire, and just goes, ah! And just runs toward the beast with the flaming axe.
Okay.
While Arlo attempts to discern what they can do, she tries to lean down and she creates another forbidden ritual, tearing apart the portal and leaving it asunder, no longer there. However, it's not enough.
As it pulls up to the sides, you see the purple energy that holds this void back, kind of flickering. The black tendrils reach up and clutch. And in that moment of tensile freeze, you hold and give the physical motion. It shatters and tears. The exterior of this portal flickers. It bursts out in a flash of bright purple light, sending the obsidian stone scattering in 100 different directions. As it shoots across, you watch as Lycus turns back. No! The creature looming up in the air just behind you, about to strike, reaches back and you can see the roots blown back, exposing its torso, where dozens of faces just scream in unison across it.
The creature is still there, and because of the shot from Augie and the creation and destruction of the portal, now it is no longer controlled, and it's running free. It's attacking everybody. Unfortunately, much goes wrong at this point. While Arlo attempts to fight the creature, she calmly loads a gun and fires at it. They know that firearms have no effect on it, only light and fire does, and so it picks her up, and the rest of her allies watch helplessly as her face is engulfed in roots wrapped around it, and then nothing but a blank face as she is dropped to the floor.
Her face, a barren, flat appearance of skin.
I'm out.
Augie, continuing to fight the man, is beat up to the point where he can no longer defend himself, and as he tries to fight the root creature, once again, the roots wrap around him, wrap around his face, and tear it from his body, leaving Augie lifeless on the floor. At this point, there's only one individual left, Howard. Lycus took off, running away, knowing that this was not a fight to be won, and he could no longer control the creature. The amulet was simply too far destroyed, and the ruins were totally destroyed as well, leaving no longer those runic incantations that would allow him to control the beast. And so Howard sits there, uncertain what to do. And at this point, we zoom out to the table as a whole. All of the players are talking to Robbie, all of them are trying to figure out what's going on, and we hear one continuous sentiment.
If you run away, you can still come back and avenge or save us. You can still come back and save us. Go. Go, Howard. This is horrible.
Just run away. Just leave. Get out of there. Because what else is he supposed to do? He has no fire. He has no way of taking this thing down. And you can see it on the players' faces. This has every single making of a TPK. So get out, and at least then the story doesn't end. But Howard said something at the beginning of this campaign.
This is one of those moments where we decide who we are.
And so Robbie states very clearly exactly who Howard is.
Howard's no coward! I'm gonna run straight. I'm barehanded. I've got a couple of hits left.
The only light you have is the direction where it's facing.
Howard is no coward. He runs towards the beast, screaming with no plans, just his fist, and attempts to take a punch. He begins tearing through the roots and separates them, finding screaming faces all over it, and he begins to search, he panics, and makes a success in his roll. He sees Arlo's face, and in his last attempt, he grabs it and rips it from the body before it begins to wrap around Howard himself, dropping him, leaving him lifeless on the floor.
Right as the creature, its arms encircle you. You take a body and a bleed.
Good night, Irene.
Oh no!
I only got 3 bodies, but I'm out on the bleed.
As you hope in this desperate rage had made a difference, your vision goes dark as you fall to the ground, unmoving and without a face.
Earlier in the fight, as Howard was facing off with this beast, he found Kara's face and managed to carve it off and saw it disintegrate. And knowing that was the case, maybe by disintegrating Arlo's face, she would return. And as he said, he believed she was the only one with a chance to do this. Howard has chosen an action he is not a coward. And as such...
Arlo, you come to consciousness, your face returned to your body, lying on the ground.
The party lives on. Arlo awakes with a gasp, looking around, uncertain of what's going on, and she sees the creature and begins to rush towards her, and Arlo makes an action. This is one of those moments where we choose who we are. Arlo looks at Howard, knows he's not a coward, and makes her choice. She is a martyr. She begins to create another forbidden ritual, creating her third bleed scar. As she does so, an eye has begun to sprout from her hand. The veins have begun to turn black on every portion of her body. Her eyes are turning black, and at this point she creates a ritual that changes the very environment around her and allows the entire room to fill with light, causing the creature to shriek and run.
And you hear a heinous shriek. The creature draws back to the wall, and then see it screeching. It's trying to get away, and it's just unable to find purchase anywhere on the stone. As it kind of stands there, it begins to shrink and wither, and it's panicking and fidgeting.
As this happens, she can now no longer see properly. She is seeing beyond the veil because of the bleed, but she picks up her gun. She aims at the creature. She fires and misses and looks up. She sees a burning sconce just above it, aims, fires, and watches as it falls, lighting the creature on fire, burning it away.
Flames burst around the creature. It shrieks and runs around. It tries to flee. It falls. It stumbles. It reaches out. You see its arms starting to stretch as the flames curl up the side, the fingers reaching, the roots themselves flailing and pulling back before they begin to curl inward. The smoke begins to billow and create this black, sooty interior of this chamber. The streaks and the screams of all the faces in unison now begin to fade one by one until it's just the singular, curling, glowing light.
And as this happens, as the creature screeches and burns, fire burning everywhere, we see Howard, who has chosen not to leave, not to be fearful, not to be a coward. We see Arlo, who has chosen to fight, chosen to be a martyr, chosen to lose a portion of herself so no one has to suffer what she has. We see Augie on the floor, who has chosen to learn, chosen to know what is more and is there, is refused to be ignorant. And we see Charlotte, who has refused to leave her friends behind, despite the fact that she has been harmed over and over again. 4 people who chose who they were through their actions, not through what they feared they might be. And then we see the 5th character. As it burns away, as the roots leave, as the faces disappear, Arlo's fiancé. The man who disappeared into the portal, now turned into a creature of roots, now just a spirit, ready to fade away. A 5th man, who knows what he is because of the actions of others, who knows he's now free. He whispers his goodbyes and disappears, and 4 people are left in the darkness, knowing they chose to sacrifice a portion of themselves so others wouldn't have to. It is really easy to feel like you don't have influence in the world. It is really easy to feel like nothing you do matters. But we forget that the one thing we do is act, and that is the only thing that matters. In order to understand who you are, you have to take into account 2 things. What do you think, and what do you do? And those things are terrifying things because it feels a lot of the times we don't have control over what we think and what we do. It feels like nothing that we do is actually going to affect anything, but there are moments in our lives where we get to decide who we are, what we are, what we're going to do. We get to make an action that then decides we can be the people we want to be, and it always comes at the moment where it is the hardest to do it. A choice to be kind to somebody. A choice to forgive them. A choice to stand up for yourself and be strong. A choice to not be a coward. Our lives are our choices. We are our choices. And the reason I wanted to talk about this campaign so much was because it was about people who chose who they were. They knew there would be sacrifices, but they wanted to be what they wanted to be, and they made the choices to do it. It's not what we do every day that makes us who we are. It's what we do when it's hard. It's what we do when it's hard to be good. And that is inspiring. And so these 4 characters come together, now each with scars. Arlo the most scarred, though Howard greatly so. Now he has a large crack down his skull, which occasionally leaks blue. Augie has massive scars across his face from the gunshot that he took. And Charlotte has beaten to hell and back, to be honest. Her arm has gone through it. She's gone through it. She's been thrown against the wall multiple times in this entire story. They've all given a piece of themselves to be the people that they hope they can be. People who make a sacrifice so others don't have to. And after this happens, they all come together as a group. They discuss, and they make better with themselves. And I honestly find that to be a truly great story. So, that's the story of Candela Obscura, Vassal and Veil. It is a 3-part story that I cannot encourage enough that everybody go watch. In fact, I think it would be really cool if there was a noticeable difference in how many views the series got, because I'm gonna be honest, Candela Obscura does not get as many views as Critical Role's other campaigns, and like Critical Role doesn't need help getting views, but it would be really cool to know that because I made a video, it got more. Like that would just, like personally for me, feel better. Regardless, I do love this story, and there are many other Candela Obscura series that they're currently working on that I would love to review if you guys would so like it. So if you do want me to do so, please feel free to comment below. Also, like and subscribe while you're down there. Do the stupid YouTube stuff. And we'll go back to that community post one more time to see if anybody... Oh, actually, my phone's over here. One more time. You got any animals? If you don't show any fish, I think my audience will honestly be very disappointed. Do you have a fish? Because I think they would love to see a fish.
Don't forget, guys, though, to like go and comment what you are.
Yeah, tag yourself. Which animal? Which animal are you? You got a good fish? Let's go. I love pufferfish so much. So, nobody guessed correctly. However, somebody did say you're talking about insert correct answer here. So you get an A+ for effort, but you do not get a shout out. Anyways, that's it. That's the video. I have no ending for this.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure to comment which animal you are, because I am sending the pet owners into the comments to see which pet of theirs is the most relatable.